Okay, the recording started. So, as always, the recording will be published on YouTube. And let's start. Let's start now with the first point of our agenda for today. So, uh, now it's about the reference and definitions for multi-realm lookup and the realm structure. So, thank you. You said that you had a look on the lines that was written during the last week. Do you have something to say and to discuss in this?
Um, no, not from this document. I think it's what for me is interesting because I mentioned in the chat that I've been to a couple of the webinars where with like open repositories and stuff like that, and it was interesting to hear a bit about the importance of metadata and PIDs and how important it is that they can be somehow interconnected. But apparently there is still like also when you look at bigger policy pictures, it's still very unclear what the best practices are. So the most repositories that I think last week at the webinar presented, they have to work on best practices itself. So I think that also, I mean, fits with the thoughts of the group as well, is that we have the opportunity to maybe propose a structure that is useful for everybody and not have everybody work on something themselves and then try to make it interoperable later. So I think that was, for me at least, an interesting thing to hear on a bigger scale.
Uh, could you please just tell us a bit more about what you have heard on the webinar?
Yes, so it was so I did two the last couple of weeks. There were two webinars that I attended. One was the a more general open science, basically getting it out there for universities and policies. That was a bit less interesting because it was more high level of what the goals are for the potential next policy papers of the next whatever 5 years or so. There, the only thing that was interesting is I think I wrote it in the chat the last time as well, is that there was talk about infrastructure, obviously, but not in a deeper level that would have been more interesting, I guess, for that. But the webinar last week was more interesting because it was about open repositories, and there comes this idea that the best practices are still, I feel like, something that comes from the repositories themselves and not like on a general understanding or policy level where people understand that it would be good to work out some kind of base level structure that we can connect to stuff. And I think like PIDs was mentioned maybe one time and the metadata not that much. It was just mentioned how important it is to have sort of interconnected metadata, but not on a structural level. It was just more on a practical level of yeah, it's good if it's connected because then you can sort of support open science practices as well because you can easily connect research data that you use in your replication. You know where it comes from, for example. But again, not sort of the structural level that would have been more interesting. And one more thing, because I asked this thing in the chat as well, is how how they plan to sort of secure these databases because it was basically just repositories from universities or libraries. And my question was, how is it secured? Like, do you have huge databases? Is it a centralized mechanism that you just have your own server, or is there any way that you have a decentralized mechanism of securing your databases? And it was not, I didn't really get a good reply. It was mostly just the understanding of the sort of the decentralized, I guess, decentralized governance of something was more in terms of that the community supports as well with servers, for example. But it was also not on the structural level of understanding. Again, PIDs was not even mentioned. It was just, okay, sure, we can think of something where the community also takes over parts of the server so that we can run it. But it was not on the level of it has to be useful when it comes to researchers and scientists. Like you need to have a different level of sort of attacking this question, which I don't fault the repositories for not thinking about it, but for me it was just an important thing that I wrote down that it's kind of missing in these discussions. Although it was like a sort of almost a heavy infrastructure discussion, this was missing for me at least.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for explaining this. So it's even the security questions are, let's say, out of bounds for these webinars, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was not really talked about. I just asked it in the end because I was like, that is very interesting what they plan or think about. But when we talk about research data, that is one of the top three things that we should talk about when we talk about infrastructure. How do you secure your databases? Because then obviously the repositories, they described the huge amounts of data they have and the huge amounts of papers they have and the metadata and whatnot. So then logically you would think that the first question is, okay, this is good that you have it, but okay, what if something happens to the server and then it's gone? Like
Yeah.
then the numbers are not worth anything. So it's I found it very interesting to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually people don't like to talk about things that potentially make them upset. So
That's true. Yeah,
yeah, and I mean,
agreed. Yeah,
security of your data, that could be a problem because if someone can steal your data, or maybe not that much, but anyway, if it lowers your trust in the service, it's a fail, and you don't want to think about that because it upsets many people.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
But I do think that we need to have, like you said, a bottom-up approach where people still try to see what others are doing in order to actually sync these together so that we can have uh, like an assurance that and a trust level that work between different repositories. And if we don't take into account that before we start implementing stuff, then we will have a billion standards. So
Exactly.
it's like a bottom-up approach where you look top down.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's
It's
actually a good way
true.
to put it because they mentioned as well that obviously that they have also an educational aspect is that they want their researchers to have best practices that they can then use. But like you said, it's like it's good to have it, but also it only makes sense if it fits into a sort of interoperable structure. So it's
Yep.
that super interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very
Mhm.
interesting point. Let's say, especially in terms of open science, because once we have the open repository, then we should have, let's say, at least an access control in most cases. So the best practices are, let's say, more. But even from my point of view, it's the unified internal representation of the metadata, and or at least of the IDs, is even more important thing. So we can really, because it's a thing on which we can really rely on.
Actually, one more point I found in my notes, which would be I would be interested in what you guys think about it because it was not really a discussion, but I found it, I mean, a bit of an interesting point when it comes about open science. So one of the repositories or the groups that presented was Archive. So they talked about all the cool stuff that they do. And then on one of the slides, and I found it very interesting because the title was like open repositories and open science and whatnot. On one of the slides, as a process, as sort of a best practice, they did sort of content moderators sort of in the process of uploading, which I didn't look at archive before that much. I used a couple of different preprint servers, but then I was like, I find it very interesting to think about. To be honest, I didn't think about it before that even a preprint server needs like moderators before because it would be kind of a thing of that's the the idea is that the sort of the quality control comes after. That was always my naive view, is that it's out there, like a pre-registration or something, and then maybe you do your research and then you can sort of quality control backwards what you initially planned. So that was my naive idea of, okay, you have a preprint, which means your first version of a paper, for example, or maybe you got some feedback but not peer review feedback, and it's uploaded. But then I thought, okay, this is a fascinating, again, philosophical discussion of what is then open science. If this is called open science, but then there's moderators on it, which didn't make sense to me. If maybe you have a better view, I didn't think about it before, but I was a bit surprised.
It depends on what the moderators do, actually. If
True,
they
and they didn't explain, so that also
okay,
left a question mark for me. Yeah.
so if they are sort of pushing things away to make room for new prints, or yeah, I mean, just making room, then it's less of an issue. But if they are doing some sort of systematic thing where people who would want to go in this direction are pushed out, then it's a problem.
Yeah, let's say in my opinion, once you have a decentralized governance model, once you are staying alone, then you shouldn't have the, let's say, the moderation. So as you are the responsible, and your PID, what you have published, it should be just, let's say, someone should be able to mark it, or
Yeah,
to just to provide a link and then to report it to the system. This is why in the definition I tried to propose, I wrote about the weights and the marks during the system status consensus, like it is done in actually Tor network. Because in the Tor network, there is an entity called trusted relay. We shouldn't have anything of this, I guess, but uh, let's say for example, if we have a scientific institution, there should be a mechanism that describes to the system. Then, if the scientific institution signs the key for someone, then this key should have a, let's say, more probability than uh, the published article under one of the PIDs should be peer reviewed, or something like that, or something like that. And there is a very thin, literally the bleeding edge balance between this kind of, let's say, voting mechanism and reporting mechanism and moderation mechanism. Because this system is quite vulnerable for being abused.
yeah.
And let's say the more automatic it is, the safer it is. This is
Usually that's
a
true.
because, for example, I don't know if we should think about it now. I don't think so. It's let's say on a pre-implementation stage. I think we don't need it, but it could be also needed to think about, let's say, the trust over the reviews. If someone issues the review and then publishes it under his own PID and private key, then it should be possible to have this as, let's say, the mark of trust.
Also, one more thing to trust, because I think that connects to this as well. And in that sense, it makes more sense, because they also talked about the obviously the withdrawal of preprints can also be a quality marker, because obviously if it's a preprint and some quality check
Yeah.
afterwards is not good, then you can still Jonas, like you said, they can take it away. Maybe the moderators look for withdrawn preprints and then it's fine. But then
Yeah,
again, I'm still asking the question of, if, for example, this does not have a PID for example, then we can never tell if it was withdrawn. So we need some kind of mechanism or I guess a PID or metadata structure that we can still tell this researcher did some work of uploading a preprint. It had some kind of review, and then the review functioned as like a quality mechanism, and the preprint was withdrawn. And then maybe the researcher uploads it again later with the adjusted of the whatever the research they did. And then it would be a cool like scientific approach of, okay, you get feedback, you go back, you change it, and then you upload it again. But this has to be linked. Otherwise, it's like there's no quality control. It's like you can then just up and download whatever you want. So that's
That is
interesting.
really that is really important because that way you could see when people are doing scientific work that they often do mistakes and then correct those mistakes and publish and even perhaps correct them. I don't know how we feel about correcting stuff like 10 years after you have published. I think you should publish another article, but it's it is today not possible. You cannot withdraw something that you did 10 years ago, but maybe in the future there could be a point where people would want to do that. I say publish again, but the point here is that having like a trace that you could follow to other articles back or to other actions before is a good thing. And if I don't want to look at those, I just don't search for them. It's up to me to do the actual sieving if to get what I want, and I can't do that if I don't have PIDs to find stuff with. So I think in the long run, everything will be so much easier to see that you have an impact and you have done good work, even if you have been rejected 2 times with this. So when you finally arrive, you can actually point to see that I have done work along the way, and I think that is really good for many people in academia to
I mean,
show.
that is, I think, what you described. That would be the, I guess, the most beautiful process of to judge scientific work quality, because it's not only an impact factor of something you publish, but exactly like you said, the work of improving and then changing and then adapting. That's the quality marker. And then you publish it again or you change it. That's very cool, I think. And then you can, like you said, you can trace your work, and it gives it more value, I think, that you can see all the steps that you did.
Yeah,
Yep.
and let's say for a little addition, this is why I now can suggest to consider every bunch of metadata we are storing under the PID as a versioned, let's say, versioned one.
Hmm.
And this is why I was defining the structure using the hashes.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's like, let's say, the internal structure of a Git repository. But let's say this is a higher level. What I have proposed right now from the document in concepts and definitions, and the internal versioning, it is done. I also wanted to place a question for you, and maybe Sergio will see our video. Do you want, or do you consider it useful to consider every, let's say, the metadata profile published under a given PID as a Git repository?
In a way, yes.
I think it would be probably the most useful thing.
It's a way of thought that works for at least for me.
Yeah, also for me, as
And
let's say I have a lot of experience working with Git. So in managing the local objects, it's absolutely, let's say, absolutely unbeatable. So
you
let's
can do a
say,
lot of little changes, and as long as you don't push every 5 seconds, you won't have a lot of clogging. So I think that.
Well, let's say for the local object and also as an author of IPFS Git bridge, so I know how Git works. After implementation of this project, I may say that push even to the decentralized system may just create for you another, let's say, hash point, and you will just link it with the previous
Yeah, you are
one.
right.
And
You're right. I take that back actually, because that I mean when you're connecting to the internet to sort of spread your PID, then it's a different thing. You want to do that, but as long as you're locally, anything should actually just be there.
yeah, and the another thing I have discovered, or let's say, it's was a discovery for myself. I don't know, probably you are also familiar with this. Uh, I discovered that when you are pushing your data to the systems like IPFS,
Yeah.
then let's say it is almost useless unless it is a backend. Because you can share, but you cannot change the thing is which is in IPFS. So it's a constant persistent identifier. I mean the content ID.
Okay, so it's more of an image than an actual link.
Yes, it's a snapshot. Let's
Yeah.
say snapshot
Snapshot. Yeah.
than an actual link. So as a Git object, it works perfectly. As let's say tracking object, it doesn't work at all. I consider because once you cannot just change it. So there is a necessity, from my point of view, there is a necessity that we should divide completely front end and back end, and to have the initial internal representation for the PID. So yeah, and this is why I tried to define it. So I may stick with SSS with one of the hash functions and create this four-level depth structure. I think it would be useful to, because once we have, let's say, the divided hashes, then you are just taking a PID together with a prefix, calculate the hash on it, and then requesting the only part you need. Because let's say the states would be somehow supplied using different backends.
Yeah. That is a that's just a good idea, I think.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a good idea. And also, I didn't test it, let's say, in our context, but I tried to write a test using the Python library for IRO.
Yeah.
This,
Okay.
yeah, this one. I will drop the link to. They rework it a bit the website, so they have a quite convenient documentation. And this is a and this is a, let's say, one of the actually IPFS based backends. So it may create for you, let's say, a virtual agent, and you may prepare some binary data for being published, and then share them using the somehow serialized and encoded binary data. Yeah, so I think, let's say, the hash function is a good internal representation. Also in terms of, let's say, the system bloating, the database bloating, because once we have a database with, let's say, dozens of billions of PIDs, then we should be able to at least to, let's say, not to consume 16 gigabytes of memory.
Mm.
On the resolver side. then it is better to snap to the binary data structures. And this is actually both IPFS and IRO can work with them.
Yeah, I think that's necessary. We want it lightweight enough to actually, you should be able to look at your documents on your phone.
Yes, yes, exactly. Even let's say using both the deployment and resolution server you have by your own, or the server deployed by some university.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, So about this, probably it could be a working, let's say, the idea for working in future.
Can I go back to when you said different backends?
Yes, yes,
Uh,
for sure.
I think that is an interesting thing that I haven't thought of yet. But now that I think about it, of course, different hardware would need different backends to be
Yeah.
able to be this lightweight. So that is a good catch. That is necessary because if you want this format to be usable by everyone, it needs to be able to run on really crappy machines.
Yes. Yes. And also,
Otherwise, we can't sell this to anyone, especially health. They have a lot of good scientists, but not very good machinery.
of
So
course, of course. So it should be fast enough. It should not require the heavy websites to be deployed.
yeah, and it should not require much web traffic, if none, at
Yes.
all. Actually, if any, I mean.
Well, let's say in the ideal situation, it should be done just in one request.
Yes, exactly.
One request, one response. So
Yep.
you are sending back. Okay, Sergio is here. Hi, Sergio.
Hi, I'm in
Yep.
in a second. I just coming from the school of my daughter. I will be in a second.
Okay. Okay. Don't worry, please. So, yeah, it should, let's say, in my opinion, it could be literally a backend diagnostic. Let's say it's not an easiest thing to do. When I
No.
was trying to, when I was trying to implement this, probably at least the hashing and resolution part of this should be implemented using C++ or some low-level languages, and using library with the OpenDHT.
Yeah. I was actually thinking if you have an old phone, you could have like your client that only reads. So it's a strict version where you have only some functionality so that you still can look at your documents, but
Yes.
maybe not mint your own PIDs just like that.
Yes, it should be possible. Well, as we have the hashing functions almost everywhere, it should be even possible to, let's say, to hash some data and to share them immediately. But let's say from the point of view of a backend, it's not so easy to do. For example, during the Android application to handle somehow IPFS, it relies to external server that provides a writable API.
Yep.
To me, it seems, let's say, literally not a good idea.
I
Because
agree.
once you have an external writable API, then you have man in the middle.
Yes, you have.
Uh,
And
uh,
that is also a very good point when we're working with perhaps where you really just have to be on the same network to be able to do this. Then you don't want some middleman server to do anything. That would be a
yeah,
breach of security.
yeah, but let's say a web also REST API always should be considered as the vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because let's say To be honest, now I have had a pretty good example as, let's say, a Russian citizen hosting my own email server, because now I just fixed the Mattermost because Google blocked for me the possibility to send the email notifications from their belonging.
Yeah.
So I deployed my own email server, and just yesterday I ordered an audit to have an, let's say, A grade, including also Google for being, let's say, responsible to accept the message from us. And the security vulnerabilities are actually really pretty huge. So if, for example, you are using the plain text protocol like SMTP or REST over some externally exposed API, then you will have a breach. So yeah, so it should be probably the backend should be, let's say, required to be accessible on the local machine. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. It's
I
really not a simple question to solve. So we will just discover it.
Yeah, you don't want to send, like, even if you could do it, you don't want to send anything in like tokens between stuff, and that's the usual solution, but I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Also, to be honest, I was trying to use, let's say, the tokens that IPFS and IRO and also OpenDHT generates for user agent. So for
Yeah.
the, let's say, the local machine, to use them to log in on the email server. So,
Yeah.
as you have a representation for ORCID, you may use it to log in yourself just anywhere else and typing the password.
Yeah.
The model is like this. So it was, let's say, literally a pure experiment. But let's say it's possible. It is possible.
I think we should have some sort of multi-factor authentication somewhere. Otherwise, people would mint spoofs of other documents.
Yeah. Let's say for two factors, and it's after the roadmap and after the initial implementation.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And in the end, probably just one thought. In the end, it's probably more relevant than from the researchers' ID side and not from our side initially. Because if you solve sort of the SSI side from researchers, then it's easier, I guess, to connect it back to this system anyway. But yeah,
Yes.
like you said, it's a later problem.
Yes, it's a later problem. Okay. So now I wanted to place a question for Sergio. Sergio, can you hear us? Are you busy right now? You are muted.
I'm here. Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Did you have time to have a look on the last lines I have written on the concepts and definitions?
no, I didn't have. I watched the meeting with the what was this other Russian?
No, our Ukrainian friend Slava.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yes, and this is why it was actually not shared openly.
Okay, yeah, it was very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, and I think there were how to say, I didn't see you did changes in base of what Slava said. Okay,
Sorry,
I will look.
sorry. Did the changes?
The changes you did there were after what Slava said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and also once he said about the, let's say, the wishes and the constraints of resolution, it was, let's say, it actually driving me to do some of the changes and to rethink, let's say, the PID as, let's say, backend agnostic.
Yeah.
and also for the internal representation, because once we don't have a better internal representation than the modern system has, then we are out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also trying to collect information about this. So let's say I was not surprised, but there is actually no information about what an internal what the internal representation which is used by ORCID. So the internal representation is completely closed.
Obscure. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. So the system is it seems really obscure. Once and this is why I tried to propose this, because it's quite again. Please forgive me for the repeats, but it's in my opinion it should be quite Git-like. So it's let's say the wrapper over the Git repository, which is again the Git repository.
Yeah.
Let's say in
Yeah.
terms of versioning.
Like Radical. You saw Radical. I think
Yes,
I
yes,
sent you the link.
yes, yes.
Because
But
Radical is a Git under P2P with a P2P structure. I think that's the best solution. The thing is, you have to have quite a network so it's stable. You know,
yeah, yeah.
the strength is in the that many people creates nodes and replicates.
Exactly, exactly. And this is why I had defined this structure with the multiple levels. So you are requesting the level, you may request only the part of the data, but you are obliged to cache it.
Yeah, that's why I'm also you know, Diego is establishing a proper research line in the university, and I think the time pass, and I'm also understand more his approach. That is to convince already a network to acquire a tool, you know, because if we design the tool but we don't have the customers, just to say it clear, that will give strength to that tool, the tool will be a useless tool and just a good idea of many that is there.
Yeah,
So to pitch it beforehand to a network that will, like for example, the university system in Argentina, that will use it, appropriate it, and give it the strength by the replica of it, installing and making the network strong, then it has a future.
yeah. So we need a network.
Yes, but you need someone before to know to whom you are designing beforehand. Maybe it's not a customized, because in the spirit is universal, but you have a local network, starting network that will give use to the tool, and then it will spread from there.
Yeah,
That's something that Slava was saying. That it's like you have to think to whom you are designing the tool.
exactly.
Slava was also in that direction.
Yeah. I remember, and let's say I was trying to think about it as much as I can. But now, let's say, due to the, let's say, very stressful weeks, I only tried to design the structure which would be more or less convenient.
Yeah.
More or less convenient.
The thing is that this will also come when we design the roadmap, because if we look for the customer, the network, the first network that will be the users, then it will be more clear which tools and some directions will be defined there.
Of course. Once we have let's say lateral customers, they use let's say some tools they won't use. Yeah, this is what also Slava said.
Yeah. So just because we can break our heads in a theoretical aspect, okay, what the ID verification tool is better and which communication messaging tool will be better, but all of that will depend on the first network that will use the tool.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, as Slava said.
Yeah. So we have a lot of marketing to do before.
Yeah, which is let's say obviously not my strongest side. So let's say to me it seems really a complicated task. Designing structures and designing data compression to me it's quite less complicated than to design a marketing strategy.
Yeah, but it's something that we have to think of.
Yes. Yes, so we need not only think, we need also to keep it in mind constantly once we are doing anything.
I think one thing is that we need to be open with how things are constructed, so that people can gain trust. Obfuscating anything will just lead to failure.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is actually this is why I use I'm trying to use, to be honest, a lot of predefined and known data structures and programming approaches that are used in the systems like Git. So once the people should know how it works. Let's say to be, let's say, conscious users, because otherwise it would be like with Handle right now, or even with Scopus ID, because I tried to calculate some hashes from the let's say open tokens shared by open authorization systems, and one of them was a let's say Scopus, so level of convenience is 0.
Yeah.
And yeah,
The thing also is there that the infrastructure of how to say mainstream science, although open is a hype, they don't want to open. Like 3 days ago, it was that the Web of Science refused exclude eLife journal from the Web of Science because of the open peer review system they were using. So more openness for us can be a good thing, but for the status quo of things, it's a challenge that they don't want to, they will fight against. And Slava said also something in that regard.
yes, of course. And let's say, as we are striving to do just, let's say, to define a PID, then it's better just to, let's say, not to forget about the mechanism that allow people to hide something or to share something. For me, it's quite obvious. Because let's say once we are sharing the metadata. Now we are sharing the metadata.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I could see, let's say from my point of view, I don't know if it will work in the current status quo in science, but in my opinion, we should not do some PIDs unresolvable. So they should always be resolvable, but let's say some content should be just hidden or requiring authorization.
Yeah.
But the metadata
Yeah.
should be open.
yesterday I meet with the Philip because I wanted to know about this I publish how does it work,
Yeah.
and they are designing and they are creating some kind of middle institution, kind of a realm, but it's still centralized because
Uh,
you have to. I mean, centralized it is in theory decentralized, in practice centralized.
yes, in practice, let's call it it's monopolized for now.
Yeah, you can say like this.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
yeah. Sorry.
but
Go
still,
ahead.
he said that it can offer a solution for the Latin America journals to get a DOI with registry because he will lend the cross-ref registry of these labs. I don't know how he will finance that.
Mm,
You know,
yeah. To me, it's quite not clear how they
no.
strive to do it. And
But anyhow, I also looking for solutions in that sense, and I didn't close. I say okay, I will study what you have to offer, but I don't see that it goes to any open governance of that of the tools there. You know, it will be just another centralized and maybe with the blockchain hype, another tool for the to be part of that
well, I
a
would be
new status quo. I mean, I think he wants to make its way to a new status quo.
uh, yeah, it's let's say it's kind of advocacy, which also even Eric was mentioning during when we were working together. And yes, and this approach, well, it will exist,
The
but
same way, blockchain, it doesn't want to define the banking system. They want to be part of a new banking system.
exactly.
It's kind of like that.
Exactly. Just out of curiosity, do you have a let's say an invitation for for tomorrow? For
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
will
that's
you
it.
connect? I will do my best to connect
I
and to
will try
place some
to.
questions there.
Yeah, I will try to be there as well.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Same. Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, I think this would be a good question because to me, after another time I tried to deploy ceramic just out of the blue, the ceramic infrastructure on my machine. It was not successful, so probably the best and the only best way to deploy it to use a Docker container. And let's say blockchain to me seems one of the factors that can literally, in fact, despite you are intended to do or not, to monopolize some decentralized thing. Probably we have lost Sergio.
No. I'm here. I'm here. I just thinking. Yeah, I would like to hear what Ben had to say about because he's more in that world as well. And
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's fascinating to think about, and for me, it's the thing of like with any emerging technology or any technology, there is an ideal use case for it, and then stuff where you can use it, but not necessarily should or have to use it. And I think the important thing, I think what we also try to work towards is to have an understanding of the structures that can be useful regardless of what the technology is that we use in the end. Because for some things, blockchain will be perfect to use, and for other things, it will not be good. So I think it's always, I always have a problem when people are very like too passionate about like using blockchain for everything. Like I work in blockchain, I research blockchain, but I'm not someone who says, oh, we have to use it for everything. I'll be like, okay, we have very specific use cases where it's good to do, and maybe aspect as well. But I think even the DSci Labs one, what you both guys discussed now, even there, I think it's so interesting to think about that. Even if in the end it becomes in some level centralized, because there is also advocacy for openness, there is still a positive part that we can take from everything. Because if they can bring in some kind of structure where it's easier for researchers to share data, or they have the metadata always available, then it's good for the general idea of open science. And like you also said, is that the eventually they want it closed, like traditional science still wants it closed. That's why I think it's cool that you can work on any type of opening and it will be a positive step, because right now the traditional science is um, open science. We use it as a brand, but we don't deliver. We don't actually do anything openly. We just say because it sounds cool, but there's no mechanism behind it. So
Yeah.
any mechanism we can bring into the discussion, I'm super excited because it's better than what we have now. So I think we always move forward, and that's a cool thing, I think.
Yeah, it's a pretty good point for us. And even yeah, once it works, then if it is more open and there is a mechanism, it is good. Let's say,
Exactly.
yeah, once we may do better, then then we will do.
And
Let's
also,
say,
actually, what both of you guys said before, by us simply working in the open and documenting the process how we get there, and if we get like a first initial network that tries it, them giving us feedback is already better than anything that traditional science did in their processes, because it was never open. Someone just built something and they said, "Oh, this is what you use now for your journals." That's it. And
yes,
we're already better. We're already more open.
yeah, obviously, we have already did this. We have already done this because we had a feedback actually, which was published in one of the articles from an artwork world. So it was I don't know if yes, it was mentioned. It was mentioned in our, let's say, the preface for our agenda, our new agenda. Because let's say the feedback was let's say very important about the wishes the users have. And let's say, yes, it's about the openness. Even it's also, we can imagine how strong the need for the people about this for artwork. So it's, let's say, uh, totally closed entities, but open metadata. And even even the reproduction of the, let's say, somehow reproducibility is already done. Sorry, Sergio, do you want to say something? Please go ahead.
No, it's okay. I have to attend something because I'm here with my daughter today. She
Okay.
finishes the kindergarten. What I wanted to ask is if Jonas, when he pitched this side to the Swedish science, how was their response? They will be willing to test like initial network for the tool. That I don't know if
Yeah,
if it's a way to we can imagine.
sure. They were interested, but they wanted like a more mature thing, I think. They thought just testing around with something that isn't working is a waste of time.
Okay. So they, let's say, they don't want to test the system, which, let's say, have a 50% of probability for not being working.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So they have a just, let's say, they want to more to fulfill the need than to have a technology, to test the technology.
That was my impression.
Yeah. Okay. Because let's say it's understandable
It
as
is,
they are.
but I also believe that some of them are possible to negotiate with. I think we can convince them to be early adopters, at least some of them.
Well, for a long time, I didn't have any
Maybe not.
interaction with the publishers, so I can say nothing.
Yeah, maybe not the entire university, but definitely some parts of it. Some researchers or institutions would be willing to test it, I think.
I mean, that
Yeah.
is for me a perfect marketing opportunity of if you're an early adopter, you get more feedback that you can give us in developing. So maybe it's a sort of a selling point as well. In an institution, if they want to try it, that's actually not a bad place to start. Doesn't have to be like anything big. Like one institution would be perfect, I think.
Yep.
That's why what I'm thinking is that we should write it down, the proposal, in the point we are now, and to pitch it in a paper to make some noise, and then from there getting feedback and early adopters. I don't know. We have to design the marketing strategy, but we should work in that. Maybe more. It's at this point. I think it's more important than the tool itself.
Yeah, but in order for us to gain trust, we also need to show that we have something that will work.
That works.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work now, it will work in the future. If we cannot say that, we don't get any trust.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So let's say to me, as I told 2 meetings before, to me, let's say my initial target is to provide a proof of concept for the structure and for the internal representation of an agent. Because once we have defined an agent, then everything should be sewn over the internal representation of an agent ID.
And you got the Slava to look at the agent's infrastructure. He did help with that.
No, I didn't have an opportunity to speak with him. I hope on our next meeting after New Year, I guess, because it's
Okay.
for the Christmas time. Obviously, no one of us probably will be able to join. I think we will speak with him and try to design something.
Yeah.
But also maybe
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Thank you. Please go ahead.
yeah. So because the having a pitch or a proposal, I thought didn't we start before the summer, or even Eric started some kind of document describing sort of the benefits for institutions to use it, right?
Yes, and
I
I will
can't
now
remember
share
if
the
we
link.
kind of finished it like as a something that we can just put
We-
on
we
a
have-
demonstrator and then go around with that.
we
Exactly.
have.
I will now
Yep.
share the link.
Yeah, we do have a document, and we do have a presentation aimed
Mhm.
at academia. I don't think we have a demonstration.
No, we did not.
So
Actually, it was proposed by Philip, and also Philip was who lastly edited the document. So here is a link. Yeah. We have a set of bullet points, supplementary points by Eric, which are, in my opinion, is quite useful, and also the very interesting points provided by Georgos, and also the let's say pre-release edits by me, Eric, and Philip.
There's a lot of versions here.
Yes. It was a, let's say, a lot of thing, and also the citation from even Barcelona Declaration and some documents. Let's say it was a, let's say, a point of work, a live point of work from Design Labs.
Yeah, I think it's good. It was oriented. I remember it was oriented to design for Design Lab.
Yeah, as what it was
Notes.
inspired. Yeah, it was inspired initially by Eric. So the, let's say, the tone, I think we may keep it.
Yeah, because
Because
the Design Lab, after they changed about that, they dropped the notes and they started with this publish.
with Codex, yeah, publish and Codex.
Yeah. I think we have to say, because the Barcelona, the whole open hype is unfair, and for me, the key point is that without an open PID solution, there is no fair.
Yeah, I completely agree with this.
That's the basic slogan. We should, without the open PID solution, there is no fair.
Oh, please write it down in the both agenda,
Yes.
notes, highlights, and this document.
Yeah.
This is actually a very good slogan for the future, just to use it every time. Like, what is it about? This is why you have to care
Yes,
about it.
yes.
I like it, yeah.
I will be happy using it.
Yeah, I think that should be our slogan. Without open PID solution, there is no fair, because F and A is about PIDs.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, it's about it.
Yeah, we'll write down, and but the proof of concept and the to solve the technical aspect is also important as well, because otherwise it's just a slogan.
Yes. That's so it's the best to write it down, because let's say, to be honest, most of my inspiration during these stressful weeks is I took them from our notes, highlights, and what we have written, because I don't have too much time to view the website and to read the documentation, so I just use our highlights.
Okay, should I write it down in this document, the bullets one you should share, or the notes we had?
Probably in both places. So can you write it in notes and then copy paste on the best statement of benefits?
Okay. And now in my phone, but when I get in my computer, I will write it down.
Great, thank you very much.
So next meeting will be in January or February?
Let's say, to me, January works. Let's say, let me see. So for 7th of January, despite it is an Orthodox Christmas, so I will afterwards celebrate it with my friends, but it works for me. I would be glad to see you.
What my thing is that we are summertime here. I'm the one.
Yeah, I know, for Southern Dome.
Yeah, so we will be. I think until February, I will be mostly out.
Okay. Okay. Well, January completely works for me because
Second
it's
half
also
works for me.
Okay, so let's say today it's 10, so
Jonas, you will
20.
be covered in snow.
Sorry?
Yeah,
If I don't
there's
if
a
I
lot of
don't
snow here, yeah?
remember bad, you will be covered in snow.
Okay. Sorry. Yes. I think I may prove that most of Moscow is also covered in snow.
Okay. Yeah, I because I lived in Sweden for 3 years in Småland.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a bit further south from where I live.
yeah. You are in Uppsala.
Yep.
Yep.
Also, I had a link here. I finally found the presentation that we gave to Uppsala University.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Nice.
you. Yes, I saw it.
Yeah, you have seen it before, but I don't know how to copy it
I
in
will.
our presentation.
Where do you want to copy it?
To some place where we have our documents.
Just a sec. I will try to.
It wouldn't let me put it into anything that had anything to do with what we are
I
doing.
will place it into the dissemination.
Yeah.
Dissemination, and it would be yes, dissemination, DPIDs presentation, RDA presentation
Yep.
by
Yeah,
Jonas.
remember you had some cool graphs, no?
There are some graphics in there. I like graphics. I think presentations are a bit boring, but there's a lot of slides actually done by Eric as well.
Yes. Okay, I copied it, and now I will throw a link on the chat.
Good.
So quick question, when do we start? Was it 7th or 14th?
7th. To me, 7th of January works. If you do you want to move it further for 14th?
I can't make the 7th, but 14th would be fine. So if it's not a problem to move it 1 week, then 14th would be better.
Okay, Sergio, Jonas.
I will be in Uruguay,
Yeah.
but I could connect from there.
That is the same for me. 14th, I am hopefully back to work after we have holidays until the 13th.
Okay. Then what we would decide? Let's agree on 14th of January.
Yep.
Perfect.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I will announce as soon as possible, probably by the end of this week, Sunday or Saturday, when I will be able to do an invitation link.
Excellent.
Perfect. So, and about the funding call, there are no news, obviously. So probably I forgot when is an opening session in February, I guess. Do you remember on Coera?
No, I don't.
This one. Let's see.
It should be here. I think it was
To be a second call to be opened in early December.
Oh yeah, it's open now.
Could you please drop an exact link?
No, I just went with what you said. Launch on December 1st. No, but that's a selected project. The next call.
Yes, it's let's say it should be. Let me see.
The upcoming second call for Cascade funding in December it's not a link.
Yeah, it's not a
So-
link.
So they say December, but they don't mention that
They
it's
didn't. Yeah, they didn't open it till now, I guess. Because now I'm viewing the page of Cascade funding. And the application platform. Well, it should be now somehow open. Just a sec, I will drop another link. Here it is. But it's a first call.
the first call was in April.
Yes, it was in April. And about the second call, I don't see anything.
Yeah, but since the project, I mean, the call ended fairly late for the first, so it was open for a couple of months. So if I'm not reading this wrong, maybe I am.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't dig it too deep.
It was open from 26th of April until 26th of June. This year.
Okay, let's
So
see.
probably if they say December, it might be 26th,
Yeah, before the new year. Yeah,
and then open until what is this? April,
end of January.
May, June. So it's 2 months.
Yeah, end of February then.
Yep. End of February.
Well, now the only we could say who knows.
Sorry, I didn't get that. What did you say?
Sorry. Now the only thing we could say who knows when they will
Yeah.
open. Sorry.
Sorry about the confusion.
Okay, now let's say it seems we passed by all the points in the agenda.
Yeah.
Do we have anything to discuss a bit more? What do you want to ask?
Not yet. I might have a question after I talk to some. We might be implementing a new way of trying to set up like our data sea where we have the data and you have identifiers for all the machinery and for everything, so you can follow the process from the data generating platforms along the way, all the way to the publication. And we found an application that does 80% of that already. So we're trying to set that up. It doesn't contain PIDs and it doesn't contain an AAI that can safely track what you're doing. But apart from that, maybe if it works, I will try to look at what needs to be put into if you want to plug in our PID here.
Well, do you have a link?
No, I just heard about it today at lunch, so
Okay.
I had nothing. But it
Okay,
sounded
okay.
interesting. But I think Lars knows more.
Yeah, maybe you would write about it in Mattermost because Mattermost is always open.
It is. So when I find something, I will try to post something there.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe see you tomorrow then?
I guess yes. Yes. If I would not be, let's say, just engaged with some urgent job in Verona in which I will be, then I will connect.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
So
otherwise, happy holidays.
happy holidays also for
Yes.
everyone, and see you on 14th of January.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a
Thank
good
you very much, and
time.
Merry Christmas in advance.
Bye bye.
Bye.